Hey everybody, this is Carrie Barnhart again, and I am back with lecture 2 of meat processing. For this lecture, we are going to look at processed meats for the categories that we covered in the earlier lecture and how they are made and the research behind them. I will also be showing a series of YouTube videos for demonstration purposes on how the products are actually formed. For me, it's better to see a visual, so I will have these YouTube videos. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get audio on them, so I'm going to be speaking over them and explaining what's going on in the videos while they are showing. So today for our ready to cook section, we are going to learn about making hamburger patties. Now, the products that you see here are trimmings that have been shipped from a slaughterhouse, and they are shipped over to a facility that specifically makes hamburger patties for fast food restaurants around the country. They come in these big totes that are then dumped into a machine that breaks them up for initial inspection. Now, these are inspected for any type of debris that doesn't need to be in there and tested for E. coli. It's then initially ground into larger chunks. As you can see, they use this for testing to make sure that the lean to fat ratio is optimal. Then after it goes through the coarse grinding, it's then ground again into the smaller grinding, which is what we're used to seeing in stores. And then this facility then takes that fine ground meat and conveys it up to the hamburger pressing machines, and they go ahead and make these patties that are then going to be shipped to the facilities. Now, their equipment is checked often. They use 8 hours every day just to clean, and they have strict standards for all of their employees to wear proper PPE and to always keep their hands as clean as possible. This is a USDA inspected facility, so they do have people on site to do watch and make sure they're following correct protocols. And as you can see here, the patties are then just being shipped over to the packaging section where they are boxed up and shipped out to their customer. They also do regulatory testing, of course, just to make sure their product is up to standard. So now that we've seen how hamburger patties are made, let's just do a brief recap. Again, the fresh trimmings are grinded together at custom lean to fat ratios and then preformed into patties. These lean to fat ratios are anywhere from 75 to 25, 80-20, 85-15. It just depends on what the market is requesting. There is roughly 15 to 20% of a carcass is made of trimmings. So luckily, ground meat is a great way to use those trimmings and not waste so much product off of the carcass. Now, research has extended over many decades that look at different types of muscle trimmings, whole muscle versus just muscle chunks that they use today, the differences of grinding techniques, and once those different techniques are cooked, how the texture of the burger is through sensory test. So they're able to look at many different things over the past century, trying to perfect the hamburger. Now, recent studies are looking more at ways to better reduce E. coli pathogens in hamburger meat. A study conducted by Jay Hayes and colleagues is looking at using high hydrostatic pressure on ground beef patties. And this is a method of using extreme water pressure to actually break down E. coli pathogens through the bonds. Now, they have done sensory tests with several folks looking at texture, flavor, juiciness versus the treated patties and the non-treated patties. And the majority of the tests came back that they had significantly lower ratings for the high hydrostatic pressure treated patties. But they're looking at now whether people would rather consume something that doesn't taste as well, knowing that it is virtually safe from any type of E. coli being on the patty, versus having something that tastes better, and there may be a food safety concern. So that research was conducted in 2014, and there are ongoing studies about anything else that may be out there on looking at E. coli reduction methods. Now, the last thing that I found, which I've actually seen it floating around on social media, and I'm sure some of you have as well, but it is a lab-grown meat, and this is currently being produced and studied in London. Now, in 2013, it was like $335,000, something crazy, to produce this lab-grown meat, but the longer the studies go on, it obviously decreased the cost. So now it is much less expensive, and some people are praising it, saying that it is the answer to welfare concerns all around the board, and that it's going to be the next big substitute for burger patties. So it's worth the Google read if you have not heard about the lab-grown meat. It's very interesting, but then again, coming from ag people, it's definitely not a hamburger. So definitely check that out on your own time if you do have a chance to learn about that. So next, I am going to cover the ready-to-eat section of processed meats. And for this category, we're going to watch a video and learn how to make hot dogs. Hot dogs are similar to ground beef and hamburger patties. They use trimmings, frozen or fresh trimmings come in, and they are able to mix them together and coarse grind them. After the coarse grinding, they mix them even further with different types of salts and seasonings, curing agents. A variety of seasonings will go into the mixture. And then it is mixed with ice. Since it is mixing, friction is being caused, and the USDA requires that hot dogs be less than 10% made up of water. So ice is added into that ration and eventually forms down into a more cake batter type substance. And so they use that to go into the casings. Now, the casings you see here are non-edible, so they do have the black lining on there just so folks can make sure that they are removed during processing. They are formed into about 5-inch sections and then pinched off, and they are put on these big racks that are able to be handled easily into the smoking area, and then eventually into the further processing area. So they are smoked for quite some time, and this adds richness of flavor, and also a nice coloring onto the hot dog. So again, after they are removed from cooking, then they go into a cooling bath, and then they are removed from the racks, and the casings are then removed using that machine there. And once the casings are removed, comes out the final product, the hot dog. Now, they are then packaged into the plastic containers that we see in stores. These individuals are quality checking them as well, making sure there's nothing broken, and that everything is being organized correctly. And so then they are taken into the boxes where they will be shipped to restaurants, ballparks, anywhere you need a hot dog. Okay, so as you can see, hot dogs are cooked during their processing, so they can be consumed straight out of the package. But typically, we do cook our hot dogs, grill them, put them over a fire, whichever, prior to eating. Now, I did want to mention that the USDA does require that hot dogs contain no more than 30% fat. So each company can create their own lean to fat ratio, but it must fall into this requirement. Now, recent studies surrounding hot dogs that I found are ranging from sodium contents to listeria reducing agents, and even looking at essential oils being put into the formula. The one about sodium, it was interesting because I guess a lot of people do have low sodium requirements for certain diets, and it is common to see meats in the store labeled as low sodium. But they were looking at how sodium can reduce not only the binding or reduce or increase the binding properties, but also the bacteria properties in hot dogs and other types of sausages. So that was a pretty interesting read to learn about it. Ultimately, it didn't have too much change, but it did have a little bit of tasting differences with a lower sodium content for hot dogs. Bacteria wise, it was about the same as normal sodium content in hot dogs. So that was an interesting read. As far as listeria reducing agents, they are looking at different types of essential oils that can go into the formulas, from paprika oil to clove oil being included into the sausages during processing. And there are pending studies on some other types of essential oils going on. The one I found was from 2003, and they didn't have too much success on constantly lowering listeria bacteria. It just depended on the fat content of the hot dogs and how effective it was. So I'm sure as the years goes on, they'll definitely have more studies on different types of fat ratios versus essential oils and how they may play a part in lowering listeria pathogens in these meats. So that concludes our ready to eat discussion. The next section we're going to look at is curing. And I decided to learn about how to cure bacon since it is definitely one of my favorite pork products. So I'm going to start with a video I found on how bacon is made, and then we'll go into some research that I have found currently about bacon. We have the slaughtered animals that come in, and the section is divided out into the primal cuts for the belly. The belly is cut down, skins removed. The bacon is at the very bottom. As you can see there, they square up the meat, making it clean so that it is able to be processed easily. They then add the brine into the bacon. It is injected using different types of water, nitrate, and other curing agents. Again, this is a curing solution that was created back when they didn't have any type of preserving methods. So here's the brine being injected, and there are another type of curing that is using celery powder. It has to be labeled by the USDA as uncured, since it is technically a natural occurrence that does happen. So as you can see here, if it does have celery powder listed, while it may taste cured, it is labeled as uncured. So watch your label for that if you do see that. So after it is injected in the brine, it is hung up on racks to go into the smoker, and it smokes for however long the company decides to smoke it. And once it comes out of the smoker, it's got that great bacon flavor. If they added any type of hickory smoked or anything like that, it definitely has that good flavor onto it. So coming out of the smoking rack, you can see the different colors on there. The big slabs of dried bacon is then sent to the slicer, and that's where they make the preformed slices and go into packaging.